are times where I don't feel that God is on your side. It's hard some days. Some days when you go to bed and you feel really sad, and when you pray things were different and could be different for you, you don't always get the answer, do you? When I had Alana, I was in a mother and baby unit for 3 months. I was seriously ill with postnatal depression and anxiety. I went through a really bad period of time with mental health. I was always frightened. This stress, it's non-stop. I don't even go to work and not think about money. I still worry that I won't have enough money at the end of the month. It doesn't stop. But I think the fact that we're still here and we're still managing, and even if it is under really stressful circumstances, it's faith. You have to have faith and hope that there are going to be good things for us. Hope that even next month is going to be better than this month. The month after is going to be better again. Faith.
We are all living with an almost unprecedented amount of stress, be that from daily living, be that from the climate crisis, from the news headlines that are coming in, from the stories of refugees and asylum seekers, from what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. So I think we need to recognise that we are all living with a high amount of stress. But for the people who are really struggling on the breadline, who are struggling to heat their homes, who also have mental health conditions, that level of stress becomes absolutely intolerable.
Countrywide, nationwide, there's been an increase in primary school children that are having to go to CAMHS, that are having to go to other counsellors, that are going to Mind, that are going to speak out, that are self-harming, that are writing disturbing stories.
So going back to the Good Childhood report, they asked the question, what are the worries of young people and of children? And so listening to them, the environment was their number one worry. And then it goes on to, we've got the illnesses, and pandemic has caused great worry and anxiety. And then we've got crime and inequality. In fact, there's loads of social issues that are causing great anxiety in our children and young people. And this is like an anxious generation, I would say.
I guess since starting working for the charity back in April, I've become aware of just how much trauma there is that is experienced by so many people. And as a church leader, I was just not aware of that at all. I was not aware of the depth of experiences that might have been life for people in the congregations that I was serving.
One of the things people don't realise is the effect that poverty has on people's mental health and their ability to think about the future and their ability to plan ahead and do all those things that are necessary. There was a study that was first done with Indian crop farmers about 10 years ago, and they're a particular group of people because they crop twice, and they are the poorest of the poor for the month before they crop, and they are quite affluent the month after. And what people did was they did cognitive tests before and after. Suddenly, they became a lot smarter. They became a lot more alert. They became all of those things that you might expect affluent people would be, just from the fact that they cropped and they were safe, and suddenly they could plan for the future. Not having money, not knowing where your next meal comes from, just focuses you down and shuts you down. And it's not the person, it's the money.
Christianity bursts into the world as a wholly new kind of phenomenon. It's got its basis in the fantastic Hebrew scriptures, but it adds to those the experience of a group of people of being saved by Jesus Christ. And you bring these things together and you get a radically new view of humanity, one where it's not just your own tribe or your own kinship group that matters, but everybody, and they're all somehow thought to be equal before God. This radical idea of us all being made in the image of God, added to this idea that humans matter so much that God became one of them, added to the idea that humans matter so much more that God dies for their sake, means that there is a new and really high value given to every single human life.
So throughout the Bible, I read about a God who is always concerned about those on the margins, about a God who is concerned for justice, a God who is concerned for the poor, for the widowed. I see in the message of Jesus somebody who goes out and reaches out to those people on the margins, someone who meets individuals where they're at, who does not judge, who does not condemn, but who lifts up the lowly, who meets them, sees their need, and is continually restoring that person to their place in community, restoring relationships. For me, that is a model of how we should be encountering individuals, not being scared of people, meeting them where they're at. And Christian theology picks up this theme of actually going out, meeting people, not distancing ourselves, but offering hospitality, offering welcome, receiving from people, rather than this kind of charitable idea that we should always be helping people. Actually, what can we learn from people who have mental health problems, who have disabilities, who are struggling with the cost of living? It's a two-way relationship.
Over 24 million Britons tuned into Live Aid at its peak. The event raised £50 million.
So when Bob Geldof set up his charity, with deliberate irony and with a nice pun, he called it Band-Aid, because he recognised that however much money he raised, it was always and only ever a sticking plaster. But if you've ever cut yourself, you know that you need a sticking plaster. You have to get that Band-Aid out of the medicine cupboard and onto your hand. So the thing is, there's nothing wrong with plasters, sticking plasters. What's wrong is if you leave the life lying around. So what you need is action at every level. You need action which takes care of people who are suffering from the immediate effects of the crisis, and you need campaigns and prophecy and action which addresses the underlying issues. But one of the pressing issues will be the increases in mental health problems, in children who are living in poverty, in families under pressure. And this is where the church's pastoral presence in the world will really come into its own. Because although we often think about our pastoral care as care for one another, one of the aspects of mission is to offer the care that we've received from God to the world. So churches that can make themselves available to the children and the adults in their communities who are suffering stress is going to be really important, because there is a drought of listening and comfort, and people in crisis psychologically need that as well as other things. It's not just a sticking plaster. It's needed, but it's needed alongside addressing more structural issues as well.
I think a lot of what we're involved with at a local level is kind of picking up the pieces when it falls apart for people. But at some stage we have to go upstream and we have to start asking some of those bigger, harder questions. And I think we need to use our collective voice far more powerfully in that public square. We need to be standing up and speaking for our communities, for people who are living below the breadline, and saying enough is enough. There needs to be a real challenge coming from the churches to a government who, at times seem to be allowing the oil companies, allowing those who are making huge profits on the backs of the poor to get away with it.
So we've heard the stories. The world is in a difficult state. Our nation is in a difficult place and time. How can the Baptist movement really make inroads in the cost of living crisis? Well, friends, the Baptist movement is you and it is me. We are Baptists together. And in that, we have a power that can broker conversations. We have a power to speak, but it must come from our listening. And as we've listened together through this process, you will have people like Tony living in your street, in the communities where you are. How are you hearing their story? How are you empowering them to own their own story and speak that to people of power? The solution, the answer to this is in the local. We may not know all the answers to the brokenness of our communities, but one thing we can be assured of, our Christian commitment, our gospel, our Baptist DNA compels us to act. We know that churches already are engaging, are thinking creatively, are responding to these issues and problems, saying enough is enough. Share your story with us. Follow what we're doing. Connect with us. We want to make a difference. Together we can.
Can we really make a difference?
Yes.
Yes, we can make a difference.
I think churches can definitely make a difference in young people.
Can we really make a difference?
Yeah.
I feel like the churches can make a difference.
Yes, the church might be distracted, we might be ill-informed, but with some of the things I'm saying all across the country, it gives me hope that God is still working through the local church.
So can we make a difference? Definitely. And I think Baptists are well placed for that because we're a people that's rooted in their local kind of community, and we can respond to the needs of our local community because we've built up those relationships.
They can make a difference if they are willing to understand the generation that is currently around us right now.
Churches can make a difference in these really tough times if we reach out to our wider communities and to see the communities that we're part of as also part of the solutions.
Yeah, we can make a difference. Churches are making a difference. Hundreds, 250 at last count, are registered on warmwelcome.uk. You ask the people who benefit from that whether the church is making a difference. They absolutely are.
Yes, we can make a difference and we can speak into this situation and do something about it. We as churches need to get creative.
I know churches can make a difference because they do make a difference. Change is possible within society if we want it to. And there's this history that the churches have had for centuries that we have been the start of big social movements because we're rooted in communities. And when communities eventually say, I do not tolerate people coming into my church hungry, that is when it will change.
Almost every housing association was set up by a Christian or faith-based organisation. The same with homelessness organisations.
It is part of our mission to make a difference. We are called as churches to be part of building God's kingdom here on earth.
Absolutely, I think churches can make a massive difference in this cost of living crisis, and already are.
But there has to be a recognition in our churches that we have power.
Politicians will only move if the community around us wants to move.
Lots of people hardly know we're there. We are God's secret. But little by little, the kingdom of God that flourishes in our churches will come to flourish beyond them, and we will make our contribution to God's transformation of the world.